God for being in this place this morning? Come on, anybody grateful that he's in this place this morning? Oh, Jesus, man. Oh, Jesus. I give myself away. Oh, Jesus. I give myself away so you can use me. I give myself away. Give myself away so you can use me. Here I am. Here I stand. Lord, my life is in your hands. All my dreams, all my plans, Lord, I place them in your hands. Say, I give myself away. Oh, yes, we do, Jesus.
Give myself away
so you can use me. I
give myself away.
Oh, yeah.
Give myself away
so you can use me. Here I am. Here I stand.
Lord, my life is in your hands.
And I'm longing to see.
Lord, I'm longing to see
Your desires revealed in me. That's why I give myself away. Oh, Jesus, we surrender. So you can use me. I give myself away. Oh, Jesus, you can have it all. So you can use me. I give myself away. Whenever you want, Jesus, you can have it all. You can have it all. Oh, use me, Jesus. Empty out me, Jesus. I give myself away. Oh, yeah. So you my life is not my own. To you I belong. I give myself to you. Oh yeah, my life is not my own. To you I belong, Jesus. I give myself to you. Say, my life
is not my own.
to you.
You I belong.
I give myself
To you.
Oh, we surrender. Say, my life
Not my own.
to you I belong. I give myself. Say, my life is not my own. To you I belong. so you can use me. Yeah. So you can use me, Jesus. So you can use me, Jesus. Use me, Jesus. Use me, Jesus. Have your way, have your way, have your way, have your way.
Come on, come on, come on. Come on, he deserves better than that. The fact that we are even in this place, the fact that he gave traveling mercies, the fact that he covered us all night long, the fact that last night should have been our last night, but he saw fit to give us help and strength. It's not that we deserved it, because if we deserved it, we wouldn't need him. But because we need him, we ought to give ourselves away.
Yeah.
See, I've given myself to so many other things that didn't have any return. But when I gave myself to him,
Hallelujah.
see, I know what it means when it says my life is not my own. To you I belong. Because when I had my own way, I was a hot mess.
Come
I
on.
used to blame my circumstances and my situations on him, but when in essence it looked back at my own self, he said, you never gave me you. If you would just give yourself to me the way you gave yourself to a company, the way you gave yourself to a man, the way you give yourself to other things, then maybe, then just maybe, I will be able to do a new thing. But I can't do a new thing if you want to be in control too. That's why I can sit and rock, because I know what I deserve, and he didn't give me what I deserve.
Thank you, God.
He looked beyond.
Yeah.
He looked beyond all my faults. And maybe you ain't got none, but I've got plenty. And the fact that he said, I don't need your past, because I have your future. And because you've given yourself to me, there are things you haven't even seen yet that I'm going to do. I am going to preach. But I can't help what he's given to me right now. If I had my way, I'd already be in my sermon. But because I gave myself to him, I've got to listen. See, I know what it means to sit there and to go, does it take all of that? Well, if you don't know him, no, it doesn't. But if he's ever done something for you, then it takes that. I could come up out of my shoes. I don't need this necklace, because I could get absolutely raggedy just telling him thank you. See, I'm cute today because I had to preach, but if I really came prepared, I'd be in some jeans and sneakers, because I run all over this place. Woo! He is who he is. So deserving, so loving, so kind. He deserves our all. He deserves it. We lay down and sometimes don't even say good night, Daddy. We wake up, don't even say good morning, but yet we are met with brand new mercies. Your car ain't even brand new. Every day he meets you with brand new mercies. I don't have to borrow from Wayne. I don't get Sierra's leftovers. He says, Michelle, here's your brand new mercy. And he doesn't just do that for me. He does that for each and every one of us. Amen, amen. You may be seated. Blessed. So very, very blessed to be before you this morning. It's still on fire, but I'm going to get through this sermon. Amen. Giving honor to God, as you can tell, he's the head of my life, right? And to our pastor, in his absence, Dr. Kevin R. Johnson, amen, amen. I do not take it for granted that he's allowed me before you. And to our First Lady, Kemia Johnson, I thank God for both of them and for their traveling mercies to take Miles to Morehouse, y'all. And so he is beginning his freshman year, and we thank God for that. I am blinded by the light, but I know she's out there, my mother. And so I just thank God for her continued support, for her love, for her nurturing. I thank her for always being present when she can be present, and when she's not here, she sure enough does watch. So I think if you see her, that's who I am. That's who I look like. Now, if you meet my daddy, you'll know who I act like, but that's not for now. Amen. It's hot up here, y'all. Praise the Lord. But we are going to jump right in and get started. And so, yes, I have a Bible. I know y'all looking like, she got a tablet and a Bible? Yep. Because there's something about having the actual Bible. I didn't used to miss it, but when my mother asked me, what do you want for your birthday? I said, oh, a large Bible, please. And she said, huh? I said, oh, yeah, I just need a large Bible so that I can study and get to know him page by page, chapter by chapter. And to have that relationship, because my last Bible is raggedy. I mean, to see it is to know I used it. But this morning's scripture comes from none other than Joshua, the 3rd chapter, and I'm going to read it in its entirety, and I promise to do it expeditiously. And then I'm going to read chapter 4, verses 10 to 13. Early in the morning, Joshua and all the Israelites set out from Shittim and went to the Jordan, where they camped before crossing over. After 3 days, the officers went throughout the camp, giving orders to the people. When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God and the Levitical priests carrying it, you are to move out from your positions and follow it. Then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. But keep a distance about 2,000 cubits between you and the ark. Do not go near it. Joshua told the people, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you. Joshua said to the priests, take up the ark of the covenant and pass on ahead of the people. So they took it up and went ahead of them. And the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel, so they may know that I am with you as I was with Moses. Tell the priests who carry the ark of the covenant, when you reach the edge of the Jordan's waters, go and stand in the river. Joshua said to the Israelites, come here and listen to the words of the Lord your God. This is how you will know that the living God is among you, and that he will certainly drive out before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Jebusites. We back to all them sites. See the ark of the covenant of the Lord. All the earth will go into the Jordan ahead of you. Now then, choose 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one from each tribe, and as soon as the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, set foot in the Jordan, its waters flowing downstream will be cut off and stand up in a heap. So when the people broke camp to cross the Jordan, the priests carrying the ark of the covenant went ahead of them. Now the Jordan is a flood stage all during harvest. Yet as soon as the priests who carried the ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a heap a great distance away at a town called Adam in the vicinity of Zeraim, while the other waters flowing downstream of the Arabah, the Dead Sea, was completely cut off. So the people crossed over opposite Jericho. The priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord stopped in the middle of the Jordan and stood on dry ground while all Israel passed until the nation had completing crossing on dry ground. 4:10 says, now the priests who carried the ark remained standing in the middle of the Jordan until everything the Lord had commanded Joshua was done by the people, just as Moses had directed Joshua. The people hurried over, and as soon as all of them had crossed the ark of the Lord, and the priests came to the other side while the people watched, the men of Reuben, Gad, and half-tribe of Manasseh crossed over, ready for battle. In front of the Israelites, as Moses had directed them, about 42,000 armed for battle crossed over before the Lord to the plains of Jericho for war. I'm going to spend just a few minutes today talking about God's rites of passage. God's rites of passage. The passage to his promise. Passage is the act of moving through, under, over, or past something on the way from one place to another. As a people, we are most familiar with being transported from one place to another. The Middle Passage, where we were a part of the triangle trade, most known as the slave trade, between Egypt, West Africa, and the Caribbean, and the United States. We were exchanged for European goods and sold into slavery in America. A passage that started with the free people being sold and exchanged for goods into slavery wouldn't end until 400 years later, and some argue that it is still existing today in Libya. While this passage may be familiar to us, there is a passage that precedes this one. The Bible identifies the Israelites crossing the Jordan as their lead passage. Interestingly enough, it wasn't Moses delivering Israel out of bondage for 400 years in Egypt and crossing the Red Sea, but rather the Israelites crossing the Jordan River led by Joshua, Moses' protege and God's appointed leader for the new generation. Now, I paused there because I kept asking God, you didn't make it the crossing of the Red Sea. One would think, I have been in bondage for 400 years. That crossing is more significant in some ways than the hundreds of thousands that were about to cross the Jordan. But he said, no. If we were to look at this through our own lives, we probably would have chosen for ourselves when he delivered us from our most devastating situation, our passage that said, oh my goodness, please come get me, and he did. But it's not the most tumultuous times that determine our passage, but it's when we finally get in alignment with our assignment. And God is saying, I am now testing your faith and not blessing your ignorance. That's what the passage is about. Because if I have to move you in your ignorance, then you really don't have a relationship with me. And so there's no passage. It's just my grace and my mercy. Because I've used grace and mercy to get you through, that's not relational, that's transactional. So stop trying to get from me what comes with relationship when all you want to do is have transactions. That's why it becomes important that we pay attention to our crossings and when we stand at the banks of the river. So if we take an even closer look at this, the rites of passage. Now, we're familiar with the rites of passage. In fact, most times we associate it with transitioning young boys and young girls into puberty, or if you pledged an organization, a sorority or a fraternity, you had an experience where you too went through a process and then subsequently came out on the other side and then belonged to an organization. But this rites of passage involves individuals who leave one group and join another. It involves activities and teachings designed to strip individuals of their original roles and prepares them for their new roles. Arnold van Gennep says that an individual group will go through 3 phases during this process: separation, liminality, and incorporation. Phase 1, separation, is symbolic behavior signifying that the detachment of an individual or a group from an earlier fixed point in the social structure. It is the cutting away from one's old self to becoming new. It is the cutting away of one's old self and becoming new. Rites of passage, phase 1. Phase 2 says liminality, the transition of successfully detaching from the old, but not quite at the new. So you're in the middle. I can't go back to what I was, but I am not what I'm supposed to be. What do I do in the meantime? In the meantime, God uses this space to test and transform. He tests our faith. He transforms who we are into what we're supposed to be. Phase 3 says incorporation. In the completion, we assume fully who we're supposed to be. So phase 3 says, I'm no longer what I was. I've gotten through the middle, and I've arrived at where I'm supposed to be. Not who he's called to me to be ultimately, but where I'm supposed to be. Because somehow we get it confused that we say yes to God, we give ourselves away, and we think that's it. It's not. It's just the beginning. I gave this analogy the other day, and I said, if you built a single level house, then you immediately start putting the roof on after you put up the foundation and the walls. And some of us, God designed to be a ranch. Some of us, God has decided that we're colonials. Some of us, we have first floors, basements, and what we don't realize is as soon as we think we've stretched to the capacity of the building, he goes, that ain't a roof, it's your next floor. It's time to go up a little bit higher. So he's telling you in this passage, stop making ceilings your roof when I said that there's another level for you to get to. The rites of passage. So let me bring it a little bit closer. In the text, see, y'all think I got away from it. And I didn't. God did some separating. First, he removed his people from Egypt so that he himself could shape and mold them. He birthed new generations while simultaneously cutting away the old. He let them wander in the wilderness where they would test their obedience, their faithfulness, to see if the physical separation from their past would ultimately free their mind and their spirit to fully serve him. But we know their disobedience ran rapid. In fact, it caused Moses to strike a rock when he was supposed to speak to it. And because he was disobedient, he missed the promised land. How many times have God told you to speak to something that you slapped? Don't get so fast and ahead of yourself that you're going to do the same thing or do what you are told to do because you're afraid of the people. When God says to do something, it doesn't matter what the people say because the people will cause you to miss the promise. So now Moses has to raise up a protege. Instead of leading them to the promised land, he has to give instruction for the promised land because he can't go. The Israelites were no better because Moses fell because of such a rude and crude people. They fell prey to the whims of their flesh with idols, making fake gods, causing them to wander and ultimately end up in death. What is God trying to separate you from? Is he trying to separate you from old behaviors, from old friends, from old traditions? Have you said yes but are still stuck? Or are you in phase 2, wandering in the wilderness because you won't pass your test, distracted by every emotional trigger instead of being stabilized by your faith? There can be no phase 3 of elevation if there is no phase 1 and 2 of elimination. What are you holding on to that's more important than your purpose? The rites of passage. It is growth, and growth hurts. It is stretching, and stretching is uncomfortable. It is releasing what I think I know, because we are some smart people. We believe we know everything, and everything we don't know, we will Google or Wikipedia. We have resources, Jesus. If you just point me in the right direction, I will get there. And God is saying, well, how can I use you when you're so full of yourself? If you know what I know, why am I here? How many times have we said that to people around us? How many times have we said it in the workplace? And if you're a parent, how many times have you looked at your child and go, you don't know what I know? But yet we have the audacity to tell our daddy, I got this. Just, give me what I need, and then I'm going to go forth and conquer, Jesus. We talk about the Israelites and their transition from Egypt and how they ended up in the wilderness and how a 3-day journey took 40 days because they decided that they were going to have their own way. How long have you been wandering because you won't listen? See, I've been guilty of wandering. I won't make it about you. I'll make it about me. Something that should have taken 10 years took me 30 years because I wouldn't surrender. But now that I have, I'm telling everybody that I come across, stop trying to do it your way. It's nothing but delay, and delay causes death. People say delay ain't denial, but delay can kill some people. So you need to get your life right because souls are attached to you. And if you don't go through the passage, people attached to you can't get through the passage. What are you waiting for? Phase 1 and phase 2 are critical, not just to your own salvation, but to the salvation of those around you. And this is not just about new saints. This is about the old ones too. Stop resting on your laurels. God didn't rest. He's working every single day. Who are we to retire on Jesus? He don't retire on us. There's still work to be done. And your assignment is still going to make you uncomfortable because it's an assignment. This is not intramurals. You don't get to pick and choose. I think I can play basketball. Let me go join this team. That's why you didn't make the squad. It takes work. You can't keep holding on to what you had and think God gonna give you what you need. Something's got to be empty. And if you're not empty, then your blessings will be full. But I would rather my blessings be empty and I be full of them. Choose. The first thing I'm going to talk about in this rites of passage is follow the leader. And don't y'all start singing Rakim. And for those of you who know the club days, we ain't singing follow me either, okay? This is follow the leader. The word says in verses 2-4, after 3 days, the officers went throughout the camp giving orders to the people, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord, your God, and the Levitical priests carrying it, you are to move out from your positions and follow it. Then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. Move out the way. move out the way. God is saying that silently, whispering it in your spirit. And then there are times he creates such chaos and we still won't move out the way. You don't know where you're going. Because if you did, you wouldn't need me. That's why he said, follow the ark. So let's get a quick history lesson. The ark is representation of God himself. That's why 12 priests were carrying it. That's why he said, send it before them and for everyone to do what? Follow the ark. So if he told Israel to follow the ark, who are we to decide we are not going to follow him? Follow the ark. The reasons we're struggling is because we haven't surrendered. And surrender requires us to yield. And that means we have to set free everything we think we know. It doesn't mean that we don't know. It just means that we need guidance and instruction. And it is only through following him that it will all make sense. Have you ever had him tell you to do something and you're just going, well, wait a minute? Noah, build the ark. Wait a minute, we ain't never seen no rain. What has he told you and you're going, it ain't never rained, Jesus? You want me to move. You want me to disrupt. You want me to leave behind. And he's saying, yes, I need you to do all of that. Because what I have for you is greater. But we get so caught up with what we can see that moving is a challenge. Now, moving ain't a challenge when he says, I got a blessing. He says, oh, I got that for you, girl. Go on. Go get it. Go, and it's at the corner of 6611 and Ardleigh. Go on in there and get that. The church couldn't open fast enough. But let him give us something we can't see. Let us give him something that stretches our belief. And then we're toiling. And I want you to understand that toiling happens because your flesh is still at war. Your flesh is still combating with your spirit. There is a daily war going on inside of you. Every day you get up, your flesh is saying, we gonna go do this. And the spirit is saying, no, we need to go do this. We have to choose who we going to follow. Who's your leader? God is saying, follow me, for I am the way, the truth, and the life. My second point is to follow me means you have to trust me. Yeah, that's what I said. Because there's different levels of trusting God. See, this introductory trusting God is because he's already done something to get us in. But when you have to trust him in that next phase of not seeing, and when you can't see it for days, and days turn into weeks, and weeks turn into months, and months turn into years, you begin wandering around saying, now where are you? I did what you said. I let it go. Where are you? Why is this happening? I can't see beyond what I can't see anymore. And your spirit is saying, but trust me, but trust me. And your flesh is going, who is he? And your faith is saying, trust me, but trust me. Your flesh is saying, but I'm tired of trusting. But God is saying, lo, I am with you always. And this battle that's raging inside of you can only be solved when you stop and declare and say like Job, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. But if you're unaware of the battle that's within you, then your flesh is already leading you, and therefore you're trusting your own and leaning to your own understanding, which is why it's not a battle at all, because the battle happens when you start saying, I am not my own, I am his. Then you wake up every morning and you have to start declaring and decreeing over yourself, because the wilderness is real. And the enemy would have you wandering right out of your purpose. Wandering, keeping you distracted from your destiny. Wandering, keeping you from touching the lives that you're supposed to impact. Wandering, making sure you don't get your blessing because you might just be a blessing. Wandering. Why? Because we are trusting what we could see and not what we have been already recipients of. And faith is what? The substance of things, not seeing the evidence of things hoped for. This is real. And there is a rites of passage to get to your promise. But if you don't follow the leader and go through phase 1, separating yourself, and if you don't go through phase 2, which is liminality, which means I let it alone, God, but I'm here, and my plan that you had originally, it's upside down. You disrupted my business. You've disrupted my personal life. You've disrupted my professional life. I don't even have a penny or a nickel to rub together to make 5 cents. What am I supposed to do in this condition? And he says, do you remember my name? And I'm saying, what's your name? He says, Jehovah Jireh. I'm your provider. So when you need something, stop complaining about what you don't have and call on me for what you need. There's power in calling on him. There is no power in complaining. But the enemy would have our minds all construed, thinking that if I wallow in my misery long enough, he will hear my cry. You are no longer in Egypt. Leave that slave mentality alone. Graduate to cross the Jordan, because your blessing is no longer at the Red Sea. He's tired of treating us like children when we call ourselves adults. How long do you need milk before you can get meat? You can't pick and choose what's on your plate. Today I want baby food. Tomorrow I want filet mignon. Well, it don't work that way. If you want steak, it means you've got to choose some other things. And that's what phase 1 and 2 is about. What are you eating? Can he trust you to be his Job? Can he say, have you considered my servant? Because ultimately, that's why we're here. Ultimately, we are here to serve. We are here to be the light unto others so that others might be saved. Do not leave church thinking that I had a hallelujah good time and I get to go to work tomorrow. No, you are who you are. So if I am his daughter, then I'm his daughter Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm his daughter on the playground, the pulpit, the boardroom. I'm his daughter no matter where I show up. The problem is if I compromise who I am, then there's no power in that, and then I end up in the pit or the wilderness. He's calling on us to trust him and to stop leaning to our own understanding. Because just like for those of you who are Greek, who could not wait to cross over and wear those colors, just like those of you who could not wait to cross the stage and get that diploma, just like we could not wait to get that phone call for the job offer, just like we could not wait for us to make sure that we were certified, just like we could not wait for all of those things. He says, why are you not pursuing me? Why are you not pursuing the purpose I have on your life? Because there are greater things that I have called for you to do, greater than any degree, greater than any letters you could wear, greater than any colors you could put on, greater, 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 greater. But you got to come through. phase 1 and phase 2. The scripture says that when they got to the water, that the waters stopped flowing at a distance. Now that's very different. I'm hot, there's light. At a distance. So upstream, he stopped the water. Downstream, he stopped the water. But water was still in the middle. It hadn't gone yet. Water was still there. So it wasn't like the Red Sea where Moses held out the rod and the waters rolled back, and all of a sudden there was dry land. What happened, though, is that they touched the edge, and he answered their prayer. The problem was he answered their prayer, and they were looking for evidence, but the evidence was upstream and downstream. So I couldn't see it, but it was already happening. How many times has God said to us, if you would just touch the edge? I've handled upstream, I've handled downstream, but because you see a little bit of water in front of you, you won't move forward. Well, thank God that the 12 that were carrying the ark said he's going to do it. So I'm going to keep on walking right on down, because the water eventually, the water eventually is going to subside. It's going to move downstream. It's going to move upstream, and there will be dry land. But so what if I got to get a little wet? If my feet get wet, he still handled the problem. If my knees get wet, he still handled the problem. But if I keep on walking, I'll get to the middle, and there will be dry land. And it said as they got to the middle that they were on dry land. All 12 stood so that everybody else could walk through. You may be called to be the 12 to step out. Stop trying to be the ones that get the dry land. Somebody has to go before. Somebody has to get wet. If you've been chosen to get wet, stop trying to stay dry. People can't cross over till you move. You are holding back generations because you trying to keep your feet dry. If our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers thought that way, we wouldn't be dry. If Jesus had said, I don't need to get wet, we wouldn't be here. So who are we to decide that I don't need to step out? He isn't going to do it like he did before. We still waiting on a Red Sea experience, and he's like, you've graduated. This is a Jordan experience. Stop looking for the Red Sea and dry land. Sometimes it's going to get nasty. Sometimes it's going to get dirty. Sometimes we're going to be crying. Sometimes we're going to get aggravated. Sometimes people are going to take advantage of us. Some people are going to talk about us. But God says, I've handled it. It's time to trust him. It's time to follow him. Because when we do, then he promises you can go possess the land. See, now y'all missing it. See, because I've gotten through phase 1 and phase 2, I can now go and possess the land. See, phase 1 meant that I had to separate some people who were not really with me to begin with. It meant I had to move out and become a new creature in him. Where I might have cussed you out, I got to pray for you. Where I might have slapped you, I've got to hug you. And so because I've demonstrated those things, he says you can move to phase 2. In phase 2, he says, I'm going to test if you're going to trust me. I'm going to test if you're going to believe me. I'm going to test if you're going to wait on me. And because I said, Father, I stretch my hands to thee. No other help I know. If thou withdraw thyself from me, whither shall I go? He says, I got something for you, daughter. Go possess the land. You've been faithful over a few things. I'm going to make you ruler over many. If you would just trust me, if you would just follow me, then you can go and possess the land. And what I love about possessing the land is that most people think they marched around Jericho. They marched around Jericho. They marched around Jericho. They marched around Jericho. Following him and trusting him is why the walls came down. It wasn't the marching 13 times around Jericho. See, it took an obedient people to get to Jericho. And if you had not crossed the Jordan, you would have never been at Jericho. So because you got there, I still needed you to do some things, but I had already given it to you once you got through phase 1 and phase 2. The other thing I like about possessing the land, and then I'll be done. Jericho was as big as this campus. Jericho was as big as this campus. It was no more than 6 to 7 acres. Dare to imagine sits on 6 to 7 acres. But I kept asking God, you didn't say go possess the city. You said go possess the land. And we've confined this land to a city. We will talk about Canaan. We will talk about Jericho. We will talk about Gilgal. We'll talk about all of these entities separately. But what I discovered is that when you put them all together, it wasn't about 6 acres. It was about 2,726 miles. He gave them what is equivalent to 25 states in the United States. So when you have to move out on his promise, stop making it 6 acres when it's equivalent to 25 states. Let me make it bigger. You arguing over Philadelphia when your promise is bigger than Pennsylvania. You staying still in your home when you could have the block. You are minimizing his promise to you because you won't follow him and you won't trust him. But if you did, you could go and possess the land. Follow me. Trust me. Possess the land. The rites of passage. God bless.
Yes, give God some praise in the house of the Lord today. Give God some praise. Give God some praise.